So I don't think you are comfortable, but can anybody type that they have
That
already joined? Yeah, I mean, okay. So I hear somebody. All right. So let's start off with my what I have prepared about fasting. So generally, when we, for the longest time, I think in my generation especially, people were brainwashed into thinking that you need to eat often and you need to start eating early in the morning, and breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And you need to eat often and keep yourself what do you say, like, always satiated, so that you don't get over hungry in the next meal, because you may land up overeating. And these are some of the things that even nutritionists have been advising for a long time. But lately, I think 4 years ago, there's a Japanese researcher who won the Nobel Prize for his research on autophagy. And autophagy is basically the concept where you do not eat for a certain time of certain period of time, and during that time your body heals yourself, it eats itself, is what that word means. And this was one of the greatest discoveries. So in all of our religions, this was already something that was advised: fasting, some kind of fasting or the other. The Ramadan is one such example. Even in Hinduism there is fasting, in Christianity
noted.
everybody fasts. Yeah. So everybody has been advised to fast, and to make this a ritual, it was linked to religious beliefs and God and all of that. But there is, a lot of wisdom in this, because this, they had the understanding at the time that fasting actually not only gives you spiritual awakening, as well as it is good for your body, because you detoxify. And as you stop eating, your body is able to focus on the other functions. Some of those are detoxification, healing itself. On a daily basis, our body is producing cancer cells, and there is an immune system that is always trying to. So there is an immune system which is on a daily basis trying to get rid of these cancer cells, and that is how the balance remains and you remain healthy. If your immune system gets unhealthy, then you're going to develop cancerous cells, and they are going to overcome all of the other cells and spread in all of your organs. So that is how this works. Now fasting helps you give your body this break where it can do all of these functions easily. So there, let me read. So a doctor from San Diego Institute found that a vast majority of people are eating up to 16 hours a day. People wake up in the morning, they start eating, and they sometimes come back late from work, and they eat till about 9 and 10, and after that, they'll have dinner, and they might just eat some fruits or so. And this gives your body very little time to rest, because digestion is one of the most draining processes in our body. So it takes up a lot of energy. And if you have food in your stomach and your body is focusing on digesting it, you have to know that it is not going to be able to do any of the other jobs efficiently. And that is the reason that that is one of the reasons, because there are a lot of reasons and we are going to talk about those. Let me go to the next point here. So when you're constantly eating, your mitochondria is bombarded with constant macronutrients, and it is mitochondria is the center, or the center of every cell. It is at the center, and it is the energy center of the cell. It is what takes in all of these energy forms and creates energy that the body can use for bodily functions. So when there is constant food coming in, even the mitochondria is really busy, and it is bombarded with a lot of work, and it can damage that. So even the mitochondria needs a break to repair itself. Now, generally, the macronutrients that come into or bombard the mitochondria are carbs, which are converted into sugar, proteins that are converted into amino acids, and fats that are converted into free fatty acids. And these are all useful. This is something that our body uses. These are forms that we use for energy. Now, processed food, the difference between processed food and regular whole foods is that we've spoken about that in the previous classes too, is that it is processed in a factory or to such an extent that it gets instantly digested. So if you eat processed carbs, processed oils, and processed protein, if anything is in a powder form, it's going to bombard your mitochondria and your system instantly. Almost everything will instantly be converted into sugar. So if it is in a whole form, then your body takes the time to digest it, and it will digest step by step. So your carbs will get digested first, and then your proteins and the fats. But if these all go inside of you in a processed form, then that also will increase your insulin levels and kind of damage your mitochondria. The other thing is mitochondria protect themselves because of this by building thick walls around themselves, because they don't want this bombardment. And this is called insulin resistance, which on a simpler in a simpler way I had discussed, is that when there is too much insulin, the cells are going to ignore it. So which is something which is an a layman way of saying it. But normally what is happening is the mitochondria is actually protecting itself, and the lining becomes thicker and thicker, and it doesn't register the insulin that is coming in, and it's not able to take in the sugars that efficiently, which is insulin resistance. And I think the basis of all of the issues is insulin resistance, and that is the same as metabolic disease, as I repeat all the time. Now, this also creates metabolic inflexibility, which I had talked about in the last class. So metabolic inflexibility is when people are not able to burn carbs when they want and burn fats when there's no carbs coming in. So if you're inflexible, as soon as the carb intake is stopped, you're going to start feeling dizzy and weak and tired, and which is very common with people who have very low body fat content, which is acceptable because they do not have fat to convert into energy. But for most of us who are looking to lose weight, which is almost everybody, I haven't met somebody who is happy, especially among women. I have never met anybody who says that I'm at a great weight. And this is such an unfortunate thing, because I will see people who are 10 kgs slimmer than me and 20 kgs, and they're still trying to lose weight, and people who are larger, everybody is trying to lose weight, unfortunately. So the fact of the matter is, now if we are trying to lose weight, we should be able to burn fat. And if you're inflexible, then you're only burning carbs. As soon as your carbs or your food intake stops, your body and your brain stops functioning, and that is not a healthy way to be. And that is the reason we have to make our body metabolically flexible. And all of these steps that we talk about in each class are gearing towards doing that. So I would like all of you to try fasting, and we're going to talk about how to fast. So, I know you're not comfortable writing anything, but if you can raise your hands or indicate that you're willing to give it a try, because this is a very, very important, and you'll see what a simple healing tool. So what do you feel? Are you guys ready? Okay, great. I can see, I think, yeah, Smriti is ready to do that. I can't see anybody else or comment. So let's move to the next part. Fasting. And what is fasting? So basically, fasting is some period of time where you wouldn't be eating anything, and or you can call this time restricted eating. So you're going to make sure that you will eat in a certain window of time, and that is, rest of the time you're fasting. Now, what is the easiest time to skip, or what is the easiest meal to skip is my question. For every person, this could be different, because depending on our lifestyles, but I will tell you the most common meal that people skip or find easy to skip in our modern setup of whatever lifestyle we have. So most people are working today, and they come home in the evening, and they want to have a dinner or a meal together with their family, and everybody comes home at that time. So that is not a meal that you want to skip. So if you want to keep that meal in your life, then the best meal and the easiest meal to skip is the breakfast. The other reason to skip breakfast from evolutionary point of view is that when we did not have food and refrigerators at home, we used to have to get up in the morning and look for food. I mean, there were times when you could have some leftover fruits or berries, but as you know from human tendency, um, the decisions that we make are based on scarcity. So if you're making your decisions based on scarcity, I would think that you have finished whatever food you have the previous night itself. Otherwise, there is a chance that you left some because you had young kids and you left some for them for morning. But adults would not be having food left over from the previous day. So you would get out of your cave or wherever you live and look for food. And that is the reason our body is designed in such a way that people who are diabetic will see that although they haven't eaten the whole night, you will have very good or even high blood sugars. This becomes very difficult to detect in people who don't have high sugars or don't have diabetes. But diabetics can tell you that that is the reason the sugar goes high, because your body is actually pumping sugar, or your liver is pumping sugar into your blood system to make sure that you have energy to gather some foods, berries, vegetables, leaves, whatever, and sometimes run after an animal or so. So that is one indication that you have enough energy. And the other one is also our cortisol levels go high in the morning, because that is the time your body is trying to get you ready to actually go out and do something during the day. So these two things tell you that you are supposed to actually be active and not eat. If you eat, we know that again, our whole energy goes into digestion and we will get sluggish. So that itself, makes it very clear that this would not be how we would behave evolutionarily or as an ancient person. And as if those of you have who have missed, I want to just quickly say that we need to try to get as close to what we have been for millions of years rather than what we have been for the past 1,000 years, because our body has evolved in those million years to what we are today. And then there are like very few changes, very simple few changes that have happened, but mostly it is designed for this kind of lifestyle. So that is the reason to skip your breakfast, because you have enough energy and sugar. And a lot of you must have observed that as children, when you were excited, you just did not want to wake up in the morning and have breakfast and then go to school. Your mom would keep pushing you, but you wanted to sleep in and then get up and go to school. And every time that you did that, I don't think any of us felt like, oh my God, like I don't have energy and I'm tired and I cannot move around. And you will always see that, I mean, I want to point it out in kids and in the most respectful way, but a chubbier child would always be more tired if he doesn't eat. And as compared to a slimmer child who's active and running around, they will actually live very easily without food. The reason being that if you have put on weight, you are getting metabolically inflexible, your metabolism is affected, and you are not, in fact, tapping into your fat sources for energy. And that is exactly the reason you're getting fat, because you're not using it ever. So it's like a cycle. Because you're fat, you're not tapping, and that's an indication that you're not using your fat sources. And a slim person will always be active. You will see that somebody who's healthy or slimmer will even without food be able to get up and do things and move around and not feel as tired. And then there's the other section of people who have very low fat percentage in the body. So we are not talking about those. When I'm talking about a fit person, it is generally somebody who is active and fit. It need not be somebody who is an ideal body weight or a model, but somebody who's active and fit will always be able to sustain in absence of food. And this is what we all need to get to. So fasting also gives your mitochondria a chance to repair itself. It does a lot of things which can be gone into detail, but we don't want to go there. So and mitochondria is your energy center. That is what will keep you active, healthy, productive. So you want to keep them healthy. The longer you go in a 24-hour fast, the better it is for your mitochondria. But it has been seen that a 6-hour eating window has worked the best. So it is the most comfortable, as well as it works really well. They have seen that decreasing the eating window to 4 hours has not been shown to have any extra benefits. or very few benefits as compared to 6 hours. So 6 hours is something that most doctors suggest that you go for as an eating window. So in my case, what I try to do is I try to skip breakfast and I try to take my first meal at around 1 or 2, and then I try to end my last meal by 6 or 7. And sometimes I might just stretch it. You don't have to be very particular about it, but you want to do this on most days, especially 5 days a week. This is not very difficult to do because we are going to do that later. So anyway, so another thing that we want to make sure is that if you're taking blood sugar regulating medicines, you want to make sure that you reduce them if you're going into fasting, because please understand that they are trying to help you get rid of the sugar that you're eating. And during fasting, you're not eating sugar. So please make sure that either if you're comfortable managing your medicines, then you lower the dosage, you stop the dosage, or you work with your doctor. You tell them that this is what I'm doing, which may be a little difficult, especially living in India, because doctors do not have the time to work with you that closely. And that is the reason they will not be wanting to be on a call. If you find a special wonderful doctor, that's great, but you just want to get an idea of where your blood sugars are at all the time, and maybe lower your food intake slowly for a few days and lower your medication slowly, and then get an idea of how much you need as a medicine to not be eating. So in my case, I completely stop taking medicines, and even if my sugar spike a little bit, I let it be. And after a while, in a couple of days, you'll get an idea and you'll do this better. So that's one way to do it. So what it does, fasting basically, since there is no food coming in, it controls your blood sugar and mainly gets your insulin down. If your insulin gets down, you start burning fat. I hope you remember when I said that carbs are converted into fat with the use of the hormone insulin. So if you have a lot of insulin in your blood, a lot of your carbs are getting converted into fat, and you will be unable to use the fat. That is another problem with insulin being in your bloodstream all the time, that anytime that you're looking for fat for energy, you're not going to be able to tap into it. Like I said, people with metabolic disease, that is the problem. They have a lot of stored fat, but when they need it, they kind of crash, and they're not able to, when they don't have food, they will crash, and they will not be able to use the fat. But in this case, what happens is slowly, it will take some time. You will be a little uncomfortable when you're not used to fasting, but eventually what will happen is, since you have stopped the food coming in, the insulin goes down. When your insulin goes down, your body will very easily start using the stored fat that you have, which you have stored for some day, not for showing it off and looking cherubic. So that is the main use of lowering insulin. It also reverses or lowers your insulin resistance, so you will become more insulin sensitive. So it's like saying you'll become less diabetic. It will boost your brain power and efficiency, because as we discussed that when we eat, our energy goes into digesting the food, and we will always get sluggish, because also our body and our brain realizes that we don't need any more food. So you will generally be in a very sluggish mode, mentally as well as physically. So when you're fasting, you will observe that until that time, until you take your first meal, is going to be your most efficient time. So even for me, I realize that I get so much free time because I'm not eating. So I don't have to cook something for myself. Of course, for the family you have to, but you're not cooking for yourself, you're not wasting time eating, and you can just start working right in the morning. I mean, of course, if you want to exercise, you exercise and you start working right in the morning, and you get some of your best work done during your fasting period. And it's very obvious, because your body is giving you the hormones, the cortisol, everything that you need to get out of your house and hunt and gather and get the food and eat. So your body at that time is completely supporting you to be efficient. So you want to use this time to be efficient, and it also frees so much time during the day. So that's the And it's a very important point. If you've never fasted, you will see after you get comfortable with it. See, initially you're going to get hunger pangs and you're going to feel all of that, but you have to remind yourself that you're here or on this course or anywhere looking for getting healthier, getting metabolically fit, and getting slimmer. So you want to lose the fat, and you have to use it, and you have to let your body or ease your body into losing it by using this tool. So it also, yeah, like I said, it activates the sympathetic nervous system, which helps us get into the fight and flight mode, which means that either you're chasing an animal or running away from an animal. So you all in that mode, you have your brain power and your physical power in such a way that you can use all of your energy for doing efficient work. Now, what is it's fasting is such a simple tool, because you, when people put you on a diet, if they say that eat paleo or eat vegan or eat raw food or keto, any of this, it needs certain amount of meal prep, certain amount of shopping, this, that, planning, and everything. And fasting needs nothing. Like, you don't need to buy food, cook food. It in fact is like almost reverse of dieting. Even what you were doing regularly, it frees up your time. You don't have to even do that. You have to just not do or not eat. Now, dieting is about eating less, and fasting is about eating nothing. So it is different. And how that helps is, in dieting, they will tell you this idea that, you want to eat less and burn that, and then you'll burn the fat and this and that. In this, you're not eating at all. So you just basically know that whatever energy you're using during the day is going from your stored energy. And that is what you want to do. You want to get rid of all of the storage that you've done for no reason, because you don't really need it. You're going to have food whenever you want, and as much as you want. So this is not the state you want your body to be in, where it is storing anything. You want to first get everything out, like throw away all of the old stored food that is getting you unhealthy, throw it all away, and then you can eat a healthy diet on a daily basis and balance it out. So okay, so it does not take time or money, because it's the cheapest diet. You don't eat anything. It's flexible, so you can choose whatever is comfortable for you. I suggested skipping breakfast starting at noon or afternoon, and then stopping your food intake in the evening. This works best also because you get to eat one meal with your family, as well as you get at least a 2 or 3 hour break before you sleep. So by the time you're sleeping, your body is done digesting food. It's done sending all of the food to your digestive system, and now it can be sent to the brain and other organs to repair themselves, relax, detoxify. Which, if you keep your body in a digestion mode even during the night, you're losing out on a good night's sleep, as well as detoxification and so many other things that happen during the night. Now, how fasting would work is, once you stop eating at about 8 hours, you should run out completely of all the sugars that you have. Sometimes you will run out of the sugar even earlier, depending on what you've eaten, what form of food or whatever. But this is kind of like, so you will run out of your sugar, and then you will go into your glycogen stores, which are in the liver. We have spoken about this before. So some of the sugar is converted into glycogen by the liver, and that can be converted back into sugar, which is what happens. So once you run out of the normal sugar that is coming out of your food, you will go into your glycogen stores, which are in the liver. You will use that, and once that is being used, then you will go into the fats. Now your body should tap into your fat stores normally, because now your insulin is normal or it's gone down. So as soon as the insulin has stabilized, your body realizes that food isn't coming or it's not here. That's the reason insulin is normal. So I have to look for other ways of using the energy. And that is why it will tap into the fat stores. Now you will be making free fatty acids from the fats, and that will be used by the mitochondria as fuel. Now your brain unfortunately is not able to use fatty acids, free fatty acids, because I think the molecules are larger, so it doesn't go through the blood brain barrier, and for that you need ketones as a fuel. Now if this is getting too technical for me, for you, just let me know in the chat, because I really don't want to get into something and make it inefficient. But the reason to make ketones is because your brain can use that as fuel or carbs. So once the carbs and sugars stop, your brain will start starving, which may happen during the night when you are sleeping, because after a while your sugars are over and your brain is starving. And this is something I had talked about, I think, in the first lecture, that you don't want your brain to ever starve. And that is another reason to make yourself metabolically healthy, so that whenever your sugar stores stop, your body can make ketones from the fat. And this flexibility will keep you and your brain healthier for the longer period of time. Brain, I mean, that's not the only thing, but your brain starving during the night is also one of the things that is making brains unhealthy and, causing other brain diseases like Alzheimer's, dementia. And uh, this uh, not being able to use your fats for your brain as food and your body is very common in people who are insulin resistant. And you become insulin resistant because of high levels of insulin constantly being there in your blood. And high levels of insulin will, do a lot of these things. One of those things is also asking for food, demanding for food, so you're constantly eating, keeping your insulin levels high. And keeping your insulin levels high is making you insulin resistant. Because you're insulin resistant, you're making more and more insulin, and since there is so much insulin in your body, there is no way that you are going to burn fat, because then you're in the mode to store fat. So let's talk about how to get started. So getting started with fasting. The longest fast that a person has done in is a world record of, I think, 381 days. And that was an obese individual. So not everybody can do that. He had a lot of stored fat to use for all of those days. And he was also being monitored by doctors, and he was given supplements. But as food, he wasn't eating anything. He wasn't given supplements in the form of protein powder or any of these powdered things. So if it was actually food free, just water and pills, which were vitamins and minerals and certain essential fatty acids probably. But I wanted to point out that that is how long our body can survive on fat if we just allow it to do that. But now there's another question: should we go for long-term fasts? And I have done, I think, and I was really young at the time. I had gone to a naturopathy center in Bangalore, and I think I had done a fast of 7 days or 14 days. Now, this is very, I was 18 at the time, and I did not even know that I was a diabetic. That was the place I found out, because they did a blood test. But it was shocking to me, and we were like laughing about their ways of how they were making us fast. And I had no understanding of why they were doing that or what are the benefits, but it felt great because there was a lot of other things that we did there too. But it's a doable thing. I have done this for 7 days. Then even now, recently, like 2 3 years ago, a couple of times I did it 7 days fasting, water fast. And then I had started doing 3 days of fasting. And then I came across this information that fasting for even for 18 hours a day is very, very beneficial. So I mean, there are incremental benefits from doing a longer fast, but not as many. So you don't want to trouble yourself that often on a daily basis or on a regular basis. So if you're, some doctors do, and I respect that, and I'm sure that can be done. Some doctors do suggest that if you want to reverse diabetes, again, let me say, reverse is not something where it switches it off and you can go back to your normal lifestyle and then you're still a non-diabetic. It just means that you can get your body in a healthier state. So if you do a 7 day fast every month, then they're saying that within 6 months, most people will reverse their conditions and be healthy and detoxified and all of that. But it is extremely difficult. I have tried doing like, 3 days a week and all of that. But I have found that intermittent fasting on a daily fast, you are much happier. And I will do this much longer. That's something that seems like a fad when you do like a 3 day fast. So that is more on an emotional level or a choice level or something that makes you happy or sad. But even otherwise, it has been found that if you do longer fasts, they are definitely more effective. But what happens is that it gets the fats out of your fat cells, and your fat is a lot of times storing a lot of toxins. So in today's day and age, there are so many toxins that we are absorbing through our breath, through our air, through skin products, and of course through food. So whether it is pesticides and fertilizers and so many things we can't even imagine, and I'm sure there are so many things we haven't even understood that are affecting, not only as heavy metal poisoning, but even as changing our hormonal balances because of this. So what happens is all of these toxins are tucked away in the fat in the cells. Now, as long as they are there, we are feeling great. I mean, in the sense, we are feeling not great in other ways, but they are in the cells. Once you try to tap into that fat and the toxins are released into your blood becomes full of toxins. And since you're doing it as a crash course, you're putting your body through this crash course kind of thing. A lot, depending on how toxic your storage of fat is, you can get really toxic blood, and you can start getting a lot of these reactions of toxins being there. All of these toxins go to your liver to be cleared out. Now, since you have been fasting and your liver is bombarded by these toxins, it is unable to detoxify this at such a pace. So it will put it back in your bloodstream, and it keeps circulating through your body. And you must understand that the blood that we are talking about is moving around all of the organs, including the brain and everything, and it can affect every organ, any and every organ. So you don't want to do something that is that extreme, and this has been found in certain cases. So it's not that scary that you can't fast for 3 days. 3 days is a very moderate thing. But I wanted to put both of these things in front of you, is that it does not really help that much exponentially as compared to the effort it takes, as well as in certain cases it is not great to do a very, very extended fast, which a lot of people do. And people have done that under medical supervision, so that is absolutely fine if you're aware of your body and you can catch this. But I would advise doing intermittent fasting. Now, how do you start doing this? So again, I actually really wanted to know if there are people who have tried intermittent fasting before. Has anybody tried intermittent fasting before? Okay, great. Smriti has, and Indira, Sharayu, Ramcharan. Okay. One day fast or once? You've tried it once, you're saying. Okay. Okay. So, yeah.
Every day I do intermittent fasting. I fasted for 5 days 2 years back.
Okay. Oh, wow. Great. How did you feel? I mean, was it easy or?
Yeah, it was afterwards, after 4 days, it was very difficult for me.
Yeah. So it's a roller coaster.
Everybody is eating and I'm just looking at them.
Absolutely. It's a roller coaster. So again, I wanted to make one thing clear for those of you who haven't fasted, is mostly it's not that you're hungry all the time. A lot of people feel like when you're fasting, once you start feeling hungry, you're going to be constantly hungry. That's not how it is. The hunger pangs come in waves. So when
Yeah.
your body is eating at certain times, those times are when it's trying to make insulin and make you hungry and get all of the enzymes ready. So you'll have these hunger pangs, and if you drink a bunch of water and you ignore them, they go away. As we all know that when you're working sometimes and you don't take your lunch box, or you've not carried lunch, you don't have time to take a break, it's not like we crash and fall down or something like that. We completely easily survive, and then sometimes we make comments like, oh, I didn't even eat, I didn't even realize. And that's how easy it is actually. But by overthinking, we make it tough, that, oh, I have not eaten for so many days, I have not done everybody's eating, my voice is gone. So yeah, it's not as tough as one would think, is what I wanted to tell everybody. And thanks, Smriti, for speaking, because sometimes it feels lonely talking alone. All right. So what you want to do is you want to start decreasing your window of eating. So you want to go 1 hour less every day. If you're eating early in the morning at 7 o'clock, one day you start at 8 o'clock. Next day you start doing 9 o'clock. Then if you feel like, no, this is getting too fast for me, this is not comfortable, then you continue for 3 days at 9 o'clock. Then the next day you reduce 1 more hour. This is how you should go. And you can even, like, reduce 1 hour per week. You have all your life to do all of these things. These are hacks that you want to implement in the long run. So don't go at a speed which is uncomfortable, because the more extreme everything is, the least your chances of staying on that lifestyle is. So do something that is comfortable and be very clear about the benefits. You can even research more on this. The PowerPoint has a lot of points, but you can go ahead and research on this. There is a lot of information, and these are some of the latest tools by some of the most modern and what do you say, like, modern doctors who think out of the box and who are interested in doing something through nutrition rather than just giving prescribing medicines. So these are certain things that I have put together, which are the latest information. And doctors in the field of longevity and all of these things, they are themselves following these things, and that is the reason I'm sharing with you. And I really want each of you to try this out. There was a time when I was talking about this to my friends, maybe like 5 years ago, and everybody thought that, this is such a drastic and an impossible thing. People would always say that, no, there's no way I can do this. There's no way I can go without food for a day. And at least five of my friends have tried it. People who said, no, it's impossible for me. And they just gave it a try, and they were like, and it's also empowering to know that you can do this, because your relationship with food changes. You realize that you are not as dependent as you've been brainwashed into thinking, that if you don't eat, then this will happen, and you have to keep your metabolism going, and you have to do this and that. And no, doctors refute it. These logics are all wrong, and they are all supported by cereal industry, people who want to keep you hungry and eating all the time. So the other thing is, like I said, reduce 1 hour every day. And 6 hours has been shown to be the most manageable in human studies. And stop eating at least 3 hours before you go to bed for brain health, so that the blood flow goes to the brain and it's not used for digesting, which is what I covered. So I'm just going to quickly go, I read it. Now, fasting or intermittent fasting, has a lot of research has been done on mice. The reason is that mice are anatomically, physiologically, and genetically similar to humans. Because if I say mice, somebody may say, why mice and how, whatever. So that's the reason we do all these studies, and they're easily available, and they have short lifespans, so you can study them. They have seen that they have significantly increased the lifespan of mice by just putting them on intermittent fasting, by just shortening their window of eating. And this is while comparing with mice that were eating exactly the same foods and the same calories, just spread out during the day, whole day, as compared to somebody or some mice who were eating just in a very short window of time. They have seen that insulin resistance was lowered and all of these things. But this has also been seen in human studies. So I just gave you a background of what a lot of studies have been done on mice. And for mice, sometimes they've seen the lifespan being doubled. But in humans, we don't have any such data, and we cannot control humans to that extent. Fortunately, unfortunately, we can do that to the mice, where we can study them exactly the way we want, feed them whatever we want, make them run as we want, and so forth. Now, blood pressure has been regulated in mice as well as in humans. In humans, they've seen weight loss, metabolic flexibility, insulin resistance has improved, blood, cardiac markers have improved, inflammation has gone down. And the great thing about it is that no matter which diet you follow, just putting in intermittent fasting or fasting for some time will give you significant benefits. So it's one thing whether you take my advice on the foods that you should be eating, but if you don't take that advice, regardless, this is something I want you to try. So eat whatever you were eating earlier, and just making this one change, you will see so much of a difference in your health. Now, one thing that I haven't put in the PowerPoint, which I want to make sure you guys understand, is that fasting, something that is most attractive about fasting is that they say that you can fast for this time, and then in the rest of the day you can eat what you want. Of course you can eat what you want, but you don't want to exactly start eating twice the calories. So whatever you were eating for breakfast, that whole breakfast and the lunch and the dinner, if you're going to put into that window, then after a peak, after some time you will see your results getting stagnated. So it's not like you won't get results. Initially, you will feel great on intermittent fasting. You lose weight, you'll feel healthier, your blood markers will improve and all of that. But people after a point start complaining that they are stagnated or sometimes even put on the weight. So this isn't in the PowerPoint. I'll try to add it there. The reason, there are two reasons to that, is that initially you're very excited, so you're doing it in a great way, you're trying to, just when you get on any kind of diet, they've seen that there is this effect that you will do it much more strictly than you would do it later. So you get great benefits from that, you're eating great and all of that. Now after some time, what starts happening is that you've realized that in the rest of the day it's okay to eat a little more. So slowly you start stretching your appetite, and you will see that your appetite starts getting bigger. So the meal that you're eating at lunch is much bigger than what you would have eaten regularly on a normal day. So this is something you want to keep an eye on. You can definitely eat a little more. I mean, they have found that, eating larger meals, also you get the benefits, but don't get to the point where you're eating like a lot more, like, almost twice, or you're eating even more than that just because you're doing intermittent fasting. You're treating yourself with lots of ice creams and this and that. Once in a way, it's fine, but that's a downfall. And I have faced it myself personally, that initially I got great, and then I'm like, why am I even doing it? And that's when I had to sort of get an maybe log it down and see what I was doing in the diet, and you realize that eventually you started eating much more unhealthy, so you're making up for it. And this is another problem with human mind and body. It will get you when you're completely unaware. When you get unaware and easy about anything, any change that you've made in life, it will, your habits will creep in slowly. So if you're like giving up cigarette, in the beginning you're very particular and everything, and then you're like slowly, okay, I've done so great that let me just have a puff, and then before you know it, you're back to where you were. And that's exactly true about a diet. So it's not the diet that is failing you, it's always this body which is trying to keep you where you were. It wants you to be plump so that tomorrow if there's no food, you still survive. So be aware of that, that if you're fasting, don't eat twice and thrice as much. So what are the fasting friendly foods? Generally, it has to be 0 calorie foods. Of course, 5, 10, 15 calories is also fine. If you eat a small snack or something by mistake, don't think that you've lost all the benefits and now today's day is wasted. So let me just take a huge meal right now, which is what again I have done. But that's not true. You don't really lose all of the benefits as long as your insulin levels are low. You're still there. It can spike a little bit, but you get it down and that's fine. So the foods that you should ideally be eating is no food. You should be having black coffee with no sugar, milk, cream, of course, because no calories. So just coffee and water. Green tea, black tea, again, no sugar, milk, honey, cream, any form of sweetener, nothing. You don't even want to use stevia and Splenda and all of that. But so ideally is what I'm going to talk about. Lemon water and salt you can have. So every time that you feel hungry, have a lot of water or some warm liquid. Now, if you say that I'm not able to survive on that, like I feel really hungry, and you feel like you'll break your fast. So instead of breaking your fast, what you can do is you can have fiber. So psyllium husk is one fiber that I suggest everybody has at least a tablespoon or maybe 2 teaspoons every day. So in this period of time, if you're fasting and you feel hungry, you can take fiber, because your fiber will go and feed your gut bacteria. And generally, they are the ones who are screaming for food. So sometimes it will calm them down. When your hunger pangs are coming, your gut bacteria is asking for food sometimes. So it will calm them down. There's another fiber which is called a prebiotic fiber, which is, it comes from inulin, which is a root vegetable. And it is easily available these days, and it is again another addition that I would like everybody to make to their diet. But especially on the fasting days, if you have these two fibers, it will calm your gut bacteria down, you will feel better, you drink a lot of water, and you will go a little longer on this. The other thing is, you can have one walnut, you can have a piece of goat cheese. Now you can't have any and every cheese, and maybe you can, but goat cheese is considered excellent because it has MCT oils and it supports fasting. So you don't sit with like a 1 kg of goat cheese and eat it at one time. You just eat like, a 1 inch by 1 inch cube or something like that. And these things have calories. So ideally you shouldn't be eating. But like I said, this is if you're thinking that you're going to break your fast. So instead of breaking your fast, you can have one walnut, a cube of goat cheese, macadamia nuts. So you want to stick to nuts that are really heavy in fat. So any other nut will raise your insulin. So you want to eat foods that are completely fat based, and not even protein, because protein also gets converted to sugar eventually. So you don't want to take any carbs, sugar raising, insulin raising foods. How to get out of a fast. Now, there are ideal ways to get out of fast. They say that you shouldn't be eating, protein or animal products, because animal products will throw you out of a fast quicker. Another approach is to eat a mono meal. So mono meal is you eat only one of the macros. So you just eat a little bit of carbs, or you eat a little bit of fat, and you can eat a little bit of fiber or vegetables or something like that. So you don't bombard your system with a very complex meal, because as I said, each macronutrient gets digested in a different way. So if you're going to put that after a break of some after a break in digestion, if you're going to suddenly bombard your digestive system and your mitochondria with different kinds of macronutrients coming in, then that is too much of a load, and whatever benefits you are getting from the fast will suddenly stop. So if you want to continue them for a little longer, you want to eat lighter, you want to start off maybe with a few nuts or something which is like pure fat. If you're eating egg, then you can eat either just the egg yolk, because that is fat, or the egg white, which is protein to a certain extent. But and these are ideal ways. But if you're like famished and you really need to eat, go all out and eat. Rather than not fasting, just eat a huge meal if you want. You will see that sometimes your body will not be able to digest it, because initially it is not used to going without food and then with a lot of food. And that is the reason also to eat lighter. But it adjusts in some time. Like my body now adjusts to all kinds of things, and again it changes sometimes, which is a detail I don't want to get into now. But as a carbohydrate meal to start your meal is a millet porridge. And as I said, lots of water and little bit of millet, like a tablespoon or so of that, and lots of water, salt, and a plain thing like that. No fat, no ghee, nothing. It's not a regular meal, but it's something like you're trying to extend your fast kind of meal. If you are a diabetic, you want to make sure your sugars are not spiking with a carbohydrate mono meal. So make sure that is not happening. So this is something which is for people who are slightly healthier. They can do this. But if you're a diabetic, just start with a protein. Just start with a piece of cheese. And then I like eating a large bowl of soup. So I'll put all of, and I'm weird like that way. So I'll take a large bowl of soup, which is made with a lot of water. I throw in vegetables. I don't even saute them. I just start, throwing vegetables into my water. I put flavorings and whatever I like. Sometimes, even if I have like some gravy left over from the previous day, I'll put that in. I start putting, if I have sprouts, then I'll just put some sprouts in that. And then in the end, I'll just throw in one egg into that. And you can even what do you say, mix it up to make a thicker soup. Or I like having the yolk sort of runny. So that's another like thing that I like. I top it off with sesame seeds. Sometimes I might just put some oil, like sesame seeds or seed oil or olive oil or whatever. Another thing that I add to it is sometimes I'll add, soya bean paste, like a miso paste, or fermented vegetables. So I ferment a lot of vegetables and I add any vegetables of my choice to that. And I love that kind of soup. And when you know add a couple of good quality, so pasture grown eggs or free range eggs. So try to buy the best eggs available to you. It can be the the gouty eggs, that like the small ones or whatever. So whatever is available to you, everything, every protein food, vegetable, try to buy the best quality. If you can, then buy the organic one. If you can't, then eat whatever is available to you. Everything is fine. So that is my favorite meal when I'm breaking my fast. Also, the great thing about that is that it fills you up completely, because my bowl itself is this large. I think it's like 1.5 liter or so, not one and a half maybe, but over 1 liter. And if you're not in India, then a lot of people eat avocados. You can eat avocado with an egg yolk and bake it. Egg white omelet works. Just having coconut oil, but then you don't want to wait at that time. You want to eat something. And if you're starting off with protein, then eat a lean protein, because you don't want to eat protein and fat. So you can even have a protein shake sometimes. Either ways. Um, there's another, there was somebody who had asked me that they were on keto and they were doing great. Their blood sugars were great. They were a diabetic and they had completely controlled their blood sugars and got great A1Cs. But unfortunately, they were losing more weight than they wanted, because this was somebody who was already slim and she was getting slimmer and slimmer and didn't want to lose weight. So in that case, if you're doing intermittent fasting or keto, or I mean mostly I want to talk about intermittent fasting, because you're cutting out on one meal, and that is the time when you want to start stretching your appetite. The way I said, for those of us who want to lose weight, we should not be doing. For these people, that is what they need to do. The meals that they are eating should be larger. You can increase the number of resistant starches. Resistant starches, as I said, like, if you're eating any of the yams as your starch, then you cook it the previous day, put it in the refrigerator, eat it the next day, and you can eat a larger quantity of that. And I love yams, but I can't eat too much, because even the yams will increase my sugar to a certain extent. But not everybody. As I said, I am very sensitive, because it's been 30 years of being a diabetic, and I've not always been a good girl. I have cheated, I've done all sorts of things, I have traveled a lot, and I'm a foodie basically. And so I love to try out different foods, and that's my passion. So unfortunately, I am very sensitive to carbs. But if you're not, then yams is one of the greatest addition, and that is something I have added to my meals, and beans and dals. So all of these things can be cooked the previous day, put in the refrigerator, and eaten the next day. You can make soups with all of this. Now, if you are somebody who's trying to put on weight, you should not be filling yourself with water. So eating a soup with all of this is not a good idea. You want to eat solid food and eat as much as you can. Eat lots of nuts. Again, you can eat fatty nuts. Everybody needs to eat fatty nuts. I'm going to talk about what nuts to eat later. And yeah, eat starchy foods. On keto, you will normally lose weight, unfortunately. So there's another diet. There's that a lot of research is happening on. It is a little more complicated than fasting, because it's a fasting mimicking diet. But this is for people who don't, they cannot fast completely. They really, so, and I think the problem here is that most people cannot imagine that they can fast. They just cannot give it a try. It's a fear in them. So I believe that most people can, unless you are highly insulin resistant. Like I said, if you are a very heavy person, and if you do seriously faint when you don't eat, because you're not able to tap into the fats, then of course you want to go gradually, like I said, like 1 hour less every day, or 1 hour less every week. Go at a slow pace and lower your eating window. But now, if you're not even willing to do that, Then there's a lot of research happening on this too. And there is a doctor called Dr. Walter Longo, and you can read about him. He has done a lot of work in this field. So he calls his diet that he's designed is called a fasting mimicking diet. If you go to his clinic or if you buy his kit, and if you are in US, I would suggest doing that. It's slightly expensive, but if I'm not wrong, all of the money that he makes out of all of this goes towards his research. So it's unfortunate that sometimes people will call them out and say that, oh, he's selling his supplements, he's doing this and that. We need to understand that they are highly educated people and they have to support themselves too. Most of us do work also for earning. Passion is one thing and the other thing is earning. So his system is slightly expensive, but all of his work, money goes into his work, his research. He doesn't keep any of that. So the fasting mimicking diet has been studied by other doctors, and they tell you what it is to a certain extent. Now, his diet is, I'm sure, the most efficient because he sends you these packets of powders and smoothies, and everything becomes easy for you. But I follow this diet too. So what I do is, I want to tell you what it is. I do it 5 days a month, and it may be really easy for people who are purely vegetarians or vegans. So it's a vegan diet and it is an extremely low calorie diet. So on those 5 days, you want to maintain your calories under 500 to 600. Some people can get away with a little higher number of calories, but you want to generally maintain it under 600, which is what I try. And then I said I try because this is life. If you start getting too serious with yourself, then you're going to give up. So this is one thing that I've learned, that you have to give yourself that comfort of cheating a little bit here and there because you're human. So I try to keep it under 600, but I have got an idea of how many what foods fit into 600, but I don't measure them every time or behave like a machine. So once I have got a ballpark idea of it, I just make those foods and eat that. Now this is a vegan diet. It has to be under 500 or 600 calories for 5 days at a stretch. So you can't take a break, because whatever the benefits are, and I think the benefits of that diet are somewhere compared to 5 days of fasting, like a water fast. So it's that great, while eating. Now, how do you manage it? I will tell you ideas how I personally manage it, because 600 calories is really low. If you were to eat throughout the day too, you can manage it. But for my kind of mentality, where I've been intermittent fasting and eating bigger meals, suddenly eating small meals becomes difficult. I start craving much more because I have now, stimulated my insulin. If I eat more meals, I'm stimulating my insulin often and I'm feeling hungry often. So the best strategy on other days as well as while doing this fasting mimicking diet is to do intermittent fasting as far as possible, as long as possible. So go up to 2 p.m. or so without food. And once you start eating, you eat mostly vegetables. So it's not something where you can eat rice and you can eat millets and all of that. This is supposed to be like an absolutely clean diet. So you don't want to be eating any carbs, grains, refined carbs. What you should be eating is vegetables, all kinds of vegetables. You can eat root vegetables, few. That is where you'll get your carbs from. And you can eat beans. So eat like a cup full of beans or so, which will fill you up completely. And intermittent fasting. Also have some apple cider vinegar. Now we'll talk about apple cider vinegar later, but I hope you guys have understood this, and it's a little complicated. If you have questions, please ask. Please at least type. Yeah, go ahead and ask.
Can you guide us to do 500 calories, 5 days fasting?
Okay, so I can give you an idea of what are the foods. I will put it in. So the easiest way for everybody to do is to use MyFitnessPal. Somebody pointed out that it is not as accurate, which is true if you use the recipe itself. So if you go there and you say rajma, and if you see, that may not be accurate because you may just have a different recipe. Somebody may make it oily or whatever. But if you put in like boiled rajma, that will mostly be correct. Or if you put in a raw rajma, that will be mostly accurate, and which is what I do. So I find the nutrient value or the macros for each ingredient. I don't go for the whole food. Like I won't say biryani, because biryani itself, like, you'll make a healthy one, you'll make unhealthy one, whatever. So if I'm entering these foods, I'll just put rice, chicken, vegetables, onions, like 5 tablespoons of oil or whatever, like, individually if you enter it, then it's not inaccurate. It's one of the most popular tools and I've used that. But of course there was another app that somebody suggested. If you're comfortable using either of those, you can. So I will give you a sample diet which you can follow. And if anybody has any other.
Fast mimicking diet in that 5 days, what to eat. You just give us
Right, right.
guideline.
Yeah, of course, of course. So I
Hmm?
mean, and you might eat less. I eat a lot. So like I'll sometimes eat like 300, 400 grams of vegetables. Yeah. So I'll
I
make
am
beans.
foodie.
Yeah, yeah. And no, and so the foodie in the sense, I hope you can eat anything, because I am a foodie, but at the same time I'm extremely adjusting. Like you can give me boiled food and I will eat it. I mean, not every day, but I can eat karele ka juice or whatever. Like give me anything, I'll eat it. So that's the reason I can do this. So sometimes I'll take like 300 grams of beans. And what I've started doing is I just steam it, but in a pressure cooker, because I have learned that, all of these foods, they lose some of the vitamins when you're cooking them. So if you put it in
Yeah.
not in water, but kind of like in a chalni or a strainer, and you put it in the pressure cooker, you're cooking it like flash cooking. So you're cooking it for a shorter period of time, like sometimes even like in a minute. You shut it off, it is steamed, it's cooked. And then I temper it with a little bit of oil and some mustard seeds, cumin seeds, like a typical Indian this. And I put that on top. I put coconut, and that's my meal. And on a regular day, when you're allowed to eat more calories, I'll just throw in more olive oil. So I don't heat as much olive oil. The rest of it I will put kacha. So the rest of it I'll just put it
Mm-hmm.
raw, and then I sit with that, and that's my first food. And you will be surprised. And I mean, I have been doing keto, but even otherwise, growing up, I was a pure non-vegetarian, and I have like never imagined that I would be eating this and feel satisfied. But when I started doing the fasting mimicking diet, and when you do vegan for 5 days, and I've also been a vegan for 1.5 year once. But when you do this and you eat in this way, where you're eating that many vegetables, you're actually full. You realize that when you eat that much fiber, you feel full. Sometimes your brain will crave, but that too goes away in 2 or 3 days. You adjust to whatever food you're eating, and after 2 3 days, you're okay with it. I don't know if everybody will start enjoying it, but you're definitely okay with it. So that is my first kind of like meal. And then the other thing I'll do is then I'll make that soup. Now, what is happening is that soup has lots of water. And during your vegan or fasting mimicking diet, you can definitely add like a tablespoon, not a tablespoon is a lot, like a teaspoon or 1.5 teaspoon of some kind of like millet flour, if you want to make it thick. Like if you want to make it more filling, you can add that flour. Then you put in the cabbage, onions, some garlic into that soup, throw it in. You can put soy sauce, you can put a little bit of like oyster sauce, which is not vegan, but I do it. And I would suggest others to be more particular, but I'm not personally. And you can also put some kind of garlic powder, tomato powder, onion powder. So recently I tried because trying to be healthy, I've not eaten Maggie in the longest time, so I've been wanting to make the Maggie masala, which I love. And I figured out that I bought garlic powder, onion powder, and tomato powder, and a mix of that is so much like Maggie, because tomato is like it has the umami flavor that people talk about. And that combination was so much like Maggie, almost like without the MSG. And you can put turmeric and black pepper and other masalas what you want. But you can make any kind of flavored broth to which you put a little bit of starch through the millet. And you can even put some of the yams, like small pieces. And then I put, like I said, cabbage. And you can saute a little bit of mushrooms, put everything in the soup. You have this soup, and you'll be almost full. Now, if you're not full, the next thing is you can have some yam, which you can saute. or fry a little bit. And all of this fits into a 600-calorie meal. It's not very difficult. And then that's the last thing you'll eat, like if you eat yams. And generally you want to eat the starch in the end. So if you're like, start off with the healthiest food that you want to eat and try to eat that the most. Now you're still craving something, so have something chatpata or like spicy or the flavors that you like, and you eat that in a healthier form. And then if you're still not full, then you go to the carbs, and this should be the procedure even on a regular day. The last thing should that fills you up should be the carbs and never the sugar. But all of these complex carbs that we talk about, millets and yams and beans are also carbs. Yeah, I completely forgot, include beans, because beans are extremely filling. So sometimes I even make like a hummus. If I don't know, so some people I think don't know about it. Yes, you're not in India, right? Are you in India? Yeah. So I mean, I imagine that you would know, but some people don't know about it. So you can make like a bean paste from a lot of beans, different beans. It's generally made with chickpeas, but you can make it with rajma and put loads of olive oil, not on a fasting mimicking day, but some olive oil and garlic, and you can put any flavor that you want. And because I like mushy foods, like I like the carb feel in foods, so I make something like a hummus and I'll just take it in a bowl and eat it. So there are ways to eat beans, putting it in soup is one way, but even making it into a paste and making it a little liquid with water and oil. And I sit and I just like sit in front of the TV, I'm watching something, I'll just lick that off. And it's very satisfying to me. And I would say that after a couple of days, you're going to adjust to this. The reason being that your gut bacteria adjusts. So when you are eating sugars, you will see that your brain starts getting used to that level of sugar to get the satisfaction that you want. And then it doesn't feel that happiness with that same level. So it starts asking for more and more and more. And this is true about the gut bacteria too. So if you're eating a lot of sugar, you're feeding the gut bacteria, which lives on sugar. Now they are growing in proportion, they are growing in numbers, and now they are asking for more and more sugar. So actually, scientists are not sure whether it's your brain or your bacteria, because they know that bacteria can send signals to the brain and it can control our decisions. So what happens even with healthy or unhealthy foods, once you start eating this kind of quantity of fiber, you will start feeding the good gut bacteria, and after a few days their proportion will increase and the bad ones die off to a certain extent, and then you start feeling happy with that kind of food. So it's just an adjustment. In the beginning you are you will oppose it and you'll feel like you're eating too clean, but after a point you will see that those unhealthy foods may not even look that appealing to you. And that is my personal experience, that things that you have liked after the fasting mimicking diet, you will see that for the first 2 3 days they don't look that appealing, and then again you have this habit of making yourself unhealthy, so you'll include them. Eventually you will end up including all of those things, and eventually you're back to where you were. And that's the reason you need to do this every month for 5 days. So my husband and I, we so he has not been that particular these days, but we've done it for a while. But we generally had started doing this on the first of every month for 5 days. So that's kind of an habit, unless a vacation comes or some guests come over or whatever. But this is what I would suggest to everybody, because it does give you the benefits of fasting for 5 days, and which is a long term fast for 5 days. You get those benefits. It's better than intermittent fasting. Another thing that I would include in a vegan diet is some coconut milk. Like I absolutely love it. But you have to remember that it has calories, so you want to count it. But certain things, I don't know what you could, like you made beans or something, you want it to be a little more luxurious, so you put some coconut milk, or in your soup or whatever. So I wanted to point that out, because even in my coffee on those days, then I'll end up having coconut milk. I have a palate which is very flexible, so I adjust to a lot of flavors. But you will probably get used to it when you see the benefits. So I think we've come to the end of the class. I don't know how to apologize for what is happening on this platform. So I partnered with them basically. And I am finding it extremely difficult. I do not want to complain, so I wasn't. But maybe it is my mistake. I'm not figuring out certain things. I don't know. Today I launched the class, and I was sitting there, and he told me that you're not seen, or you've not launched the class. So I launched another class, and still didn't happen. So we had to meet here on Zoom. And worst case, if this doesn't happen, we will continue to meet on Zoom. Next time, I will just send the link right away. My husband suggested that I should just keep two laptops, and even regardless of this works or not, have Zoom on, so we can do that. And also, these videos are extremely long, so editing them and uploading becomes difficult. Sometimes it just fails in the middle, with wi-fi going or the platform not supporting. I'm not able to figure out, so that is the reason sometimes the raw video is there, which is also fine. But I want everybody to understand that in the beginning you will see a blank portion, because I try to log in a little earlier, and in that period I'm trying to figure things out. So just skip the blank portion, and that's how you can do this. So I think everybody else, I'm hoping, was listening today. They're logged in. Hopefully this was a good session. I will see you in the next session. The PowerPoint is online. You can download that. I try to put all of the information there. I am going to go and check if I can. I will add some more information about the fasting mimicking diet into it, so that it's a more complete. And I'll also give a sample diet like Smriti was asking for. And thanks for being there. All right. Bye.